Welcome to the Top Stars Show. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Today, this is insane. I am so honored to have Aly Murray from Upchieve. You know, when I was 26-year-old, I was like chasing money. I was moving up the ladder, opening businesses. I don't know what I was doing. But when I read her story, I'm like, this 26-year-old dropped out of JPMorgan with a finance career and started helping children, low-income children from schools, helping them with homeworks, helping them with math. I'm like, that cannot be real. This must be fake news. What's happening here? And I'm like, oh my God, this is such an honor. And she has been able to build such an organization with very little support, but you know, she has lots of corporate support now and so many volunteers. Like, I never knew people can be that generous. Looking at Twitter and stuff, I'm like, there is no way this world is that good. What's happening? But thank you, Aly. Welcome to the show. We really appreciate you being here. Aly, before we get started, tell us, what is this Upchieve and what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. It is so great to be here as well. Thank you so much, Tom. So Upchieve is an edtech nonprofit. And what we do is we provide free 24/7 online tutoring and college counseling to low-income high school students across the United States. So we have essentially built an app. You could look it up on the App Store right now. It's on both iOS and Android that students can use anytime. They choose a subject that they need help in. So for example, they might be choosing Algebra 1, or they might choose biology, or maybe it's applying for financial aid. We have a ton of college-related topics as well. So they choose a topic, and then we actually match them with a live volunteer coach on our platform in under 5 minutes. So it's super quick and easy for a student to like have discovered Upchieve online and actually be talking to a live human being and getting help in just a few minutes.
Oh, wow. So, I cannot imagine. So, you know, let's say I'm a high school student and I need help with this homework. I just go to upchieve.org. I just go to your website, sign up. Within 5 minutes, you're going to match me with a tutor to help on that. Oh, absolutely. Wow. That's insane. But how much are you going to charge me? How much do I have to pay for that?
It is totally free. So there are a couple caveats that I should mention. So first of all, we are a nonprofit, and so our mission is all about trying to democratize access to academic support. More broadly, academic support means things like tutoring and college counseling. And I personally believe that these types of supports are not like optional extras that should only be added for the kids whose parents can afford to pay for them. But that's kind of how it works in the United States today. Most people who have a private tutor or they have an admissions consultant, their parents are able to pay for that service for them. But a lot of low-income students in the United States, their families can't afford those services, but they still need those supports to be able to accomplish their academic goals. And so that's what we're trying to change in the world. So yes, it's free, but it's only for low-income students.
So Aly, I'm like still trying to figure it out. So you are verifying the low-income students, you know, the students that really need help, and you're connecting them with volunteers that are literally giving their time to help those students. Oh, wow. And you are a fully nonprofit. Wow, this is most of the people, this is totally blowing up my mind. I'm like, most of the people I talk to, they have like, oh, we do this is how we charge people, and oh, this is our valuation, and this is how much we're raising, things like that. And you are completely changing the game for these students. But before we go into the game and all that, how in the world a 26-year-old come up with that? This world-changing, life-changing things. How did you come up with this?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So I came up with the idea because I actually had a strong connection to the students that use the platform, as well as the volunteers that we have on the platform. So I myself, when I was in high school, I was low income. I was raised by a single mom and, you know, didn't have a lot of the support that I needed to successfully navigate high school and applying to college. And so I actually started at a community college, and it ended up taking me 6 years to earn my bachelor's degree. And unfortunately, the majority of low-income students who start at community college will never earn their bachelor's degree. And so I feel very grateful that I was able to make it through that process, but it was by no means a clear path. And so I think for me, reflecting on my own experiences, there were so many times where I would have really benefited from having the extra support, especially on the college counseling side. I will say for me personally, I was always good at math. And, so when I was coming up with the idea for Upchieve, what I was really thinking about was how do I find a way to give back and support students like me, low-income minority students who often, I knew from my own experiences, often didn't have access to that kind of support at home and needed help often late at night in their homes. But then also, what were the things that I was able to do? So I was, working at JPMorgan at the time, and I worked these crazy hours, and I was trying to figure out, how do I volunteer? How do I give back while working this full-time job? And so on the volunteer side, what we do is we actually make it really easy for working professionals to give back and volunteer on their own schedule. And so when I started Upchieve, we were doing just math tutoring and college counseling because those are the two things that I knew I could do myself. And I was the only volunteer on day one, right? And so I was really solving my own problem. I was solving my problem at that point in time as a young professional who wanted to be volunteering but couldn't fit it into my schedule, as well as the problem that I'd had when I was a student back in high school who couldn't afford the tutor or the admissions consultant, but would have really benefited from those supports.
Wow. So you remind me of Sal Khan, right? At the Khan Academy. He started teaching his nephew or somebody with Blackboard and things like that. And he was doing the math problems. You started by yourself helping, and then I think you're a very inspiring person so far. Like, oh, okay, somebody you would definitely love to volunteer and things like that for your organization. Now, so Aly, so what are the things you guys are? What are the items? Of course, there's math. You're helping with high school math, and the college counseling, I think, is also a part of that.
Yeah. So I'm happy to elaborate. So we offer tutoring in pretty much all common high school subjects at this point. So that includes math from pre-algebra all the way through AP Calculus, science, English, social studies. We also do SAT tutoring. And then within college counseling, we're helping students with things like writing their application essays, as well as, filling out the application, or sometimes just early on, like researching colleges is another common request, as well as navigating applying for financial aid. Yeah.
Oh, wow. You're even helping them to, with the financial aid application. Wow. Whenever I had a video on that with JPMorgan, got defrauded by some financial aid company they purchased. And I'm like, okay, I did a video a couple of months ago that was, and now you were like, this is totally free. You're helping low-income students through volunteer hours. And I'm like, how could this be happening? That's just so nice. You need to go viral, like those beast philanthropy stuff. You need to be the face of these nonprofit idea organizing things. Now, that again goes back to your background. I think you must be you must have participated in nonprofit stuff where you have volunteered hours, volunteered things, and organized things. So, tell us a little bit about that background that kind of helped you take this decision.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So you are totally right. I did a ton of volunteer work and community service myself before I started Upchieve. So I was the kid in college that was doing hundreds of hours of community service. I really, for me, through high school and community college, I spent all my time either studying, doing community service, or working. So I, also had to work to put myself through college. So when I was at the community college, I literally spent all my time studying, trying to maintain the perfect 4.0 GPA to help me transfer, working to pay for my classes, and saving money for the school that I would transfer to, and community service. And so that is all I did. And luckily it paid off. But yeah, I think that, one of the things I really learned, it's interesting how so many experiences actually ended up contributing to Upchieve. The community service, for sure. I started a community service club on my college campus, and I spent a lot of time trying to motivate other people to get involved and start giving back. And what I've learned from that experience in college was just how incredibly rewarding community service can be. And especially when it's a social experience, when you're interacting with other people, if you can get somebody to do their first community service project, it could change their life, and they'll be like, wow, like this was so great, I want to do it again. And so that's a little bit of, you were saying earlier, you couldn't believe people could be so generous, and people are crazy generous. Like we have, on our app, we look at like, it's a tech product. So we're thinking about things like retention rate and conversion from different steps. And what we find is that our volunteers are actually retained at like a crazy high rate. So a volunteer who does a first tutoring session with a student on our platform, over 90% of them are going to come back and do a second tutoring session with a student on the platform. So super, super rewarding, fulfilling experience. And so I learned that from my own experiences volunteering. And then the one other thing I'll mention, since you were wondering about my background, is the number one job that I had that helped pay my way through college was as a math tutor. So I did private tutoring, and I did tutoring for my college's community, like my tutoring center on my college campus. And so it is really interesting that I ended up creating a nonprofit where I use the math tutoring and the community service experience completely by chance.
Wow, that's just so inspiring. This is when I was in college, I was studying engineering, but I was an academic mentor, and I had to talk to a lot of students all the time. I spent 2 years as an academic mentor, and later on, I started my engineering career for a couple of years, and then I said, it's not fulfilling because I don't have the public interaction. So I quit my job, and then I went into starting businesses where I have a lot of public interaction all the time, and sometimes I wondered, then why in the world I got the engineering degree in the first place? All that. At the end, that the communication with people and understanding other people's problem kind of paved the way. And from your side looking at it, the math and all that. But the things I think you were very passionate about at the end, you went with that. And of course, you're changing the world with this. Now, again, it's easy to look back and say, oh, yes, now she's pretty successful. Upchieve is doing well. There are a lot of volunteers. Things are good. The time you quit the job, the whoa, that was like, for me, it was very frightening. I was just, oh my God, what am I going to do? It's huge debt, all that stuff. And, how was that feeling like at that time?
Yeah, for sure. So I came up with the idea 2 years before I quit my job. And so for 2 years, I was working at JPMorgan. And even though I was working crazy hours already, I would come home in the evening and on the weekends, and I would try to work on Upchieve. And, we did make some progress, not as much as we really took off after I quit my job, but we were able to build, myself and other volunteers were able to build the first version of the platform. We built entirely with volunteers. The first volunteer, like besides me, other people we recruited to do the tutoring, building out the training for the volunteers. And so we did make some progress. But at the time that I quit my job, we had not raised a single dollar of funding. So we had never raised any money. And actually, I decided to quit my job. And then like a week later, we found out that we had gotten into an accelerator program. And so luckily that was our first check, but I actually didn't know that we had gotten in when I decided to quit my job and go all in on Upchieve. And so, I think it was really scary. Looking back on it, a lot of my coworkers and friends, like people definitely thought I was making a mistake. I got a lot of the advice of, oh, well, if you just stay like a few more years, like you keep working at JPMorgan, you'll be so successful, you'll have so much money, then you can go do your little startup thing, or then you could just go get a job at a successful nonprofit already, and they'll bring you in at a senior level. Why don't you do that? And so I think it really required, like I just felt like I had to, like it didn't actually feel like there was much of a choice left at the point that I decided, because I was just I was so kind of like disillusioned. Like I really felt that the only way to create change was to start helping students at an earlier point. So I had kind of been seeing that, by the time people were applying for internships at JPMorgan, I was really involved in, recruitment for my team. I could look at somebody's resume and say, oh, okay, I can tell this student's low income or this student's not. And in general, it was really hard for kids who didn't go to the really great school, didn't have all the perfect internships already, to get an internship or a job at JPMorgan. And so to me, it really clicked for me. I was so lucky that I managed to get into JPMorgan, but I didn't mention this earlier. I started at the community college.
I transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. And so if I hadn't transferred to Penn, if I'd gone to any other school, I totally wouldn't have been able to get the job at JPMorgan. And so I think that for me, realizing like, wow, like I really need to be supporting. If I want more students who look like me, have similar backgrounds to me at JPMorgan, then I need to be helping them at an earlier stage. It's really important to create change in high school when kids are, trying to navigate high school and eventually apply to college. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. But I got to come back to one thing you said. You were able to build the prototype with volunteers only. Oh my God. Oh, wow. How did that happen?
Yeah, so the app is open source. So we, and to be honest, like when I was first starting it, I reached out to someone who was an engineer, who was a friend of mine. I was like, hey, like, would you help me do this thing? But yeah, so it was funny. I didn't make a conscious decision per se to start it as a nonprofit. It was really the only way that I could have started it while working at JPMorgan, because I couldn't afford to quit my job. I was paying down the student debt, like you mentioned, and so I couldn't afford to quit my job. I had no safety net. I had to kind of be able to start building it. It's really hard to convince people to do free work, like if you in general, especially as a for-profit, but as a nonprofit, at least you have the social impact, right? And so I was reaching out to like every person I knew and saying, hey, like, do you want to get involved? Do you want to help me build this? And found people who wanted to volunteer time to help and build it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So looking back at it, would you do a nonprofit again if you were to do it again?
Yes, I would do it. I just can't claim that I was smart enough to know ahead of time that it was the right choice. I'm not going to pretend that I did. But the reason it's the right choice is that it allows us to be ruthlessly focused on the impact that we want to create and putting students first in every decision. And I think that as soon as you accept any sort of venture capital, I think like you have other stakeholders that you have to pay attention to. Yeah. So one of our kind of core values is students first. And we'll never do anything that we think actually gets in the way of us creating impact for the students, helping more low-income students finish high school, attend college, and achieve upward mobility. So, for example, again, the app's totally free. If we were a for-profit, we'd be getting tons of pressure to be like, well, you could just charge the kids, just charge them a little bit, this and that. And we still get that pressure even as a nonprofit, but I think it allows us to stay kind of ruthlessly focused on the impact that we want to create. Yeah.
Wow. One thing I read, and I'm not sure whether it's correct or not, your ability to, I think it only costs you $5 per year per student to, I'm like, what is that? How is that even a thing? How is that possible? What's happening?
Yeah. So that is because we rely on volunteers. So, building a volunteer powered anything like in general probably seems like a bad idea, because again, like how are people really going to do that? Are they generous? Like that kind of concern. But it's key to low cost, scalable tutoring and college counseling for low income students. It has to be, I believe you have to have a volunteer powered model, because if you're paying people, you have a really like high fixed cost per hour of support that you provide. And actually you're going to spend more money the more kids use it. And you want kids to use it as much as they need to, as much as possible, so that they're getting lots of support, right? And so it's so much better for it to be volunteer based. So the $5 cost is essentially like some very low like cost, server, like database, like text messaging costs. So we send volunteers texts when a student requests help. That's how we notify them of incoming requests. And like user support costs, for every 10,000 users, we have kind of a ratio of how many. Yeah. So it's essentially the marginal cost for an additional extra student on the platform is actually just $5. We do spend money to acquire students. We spend money to engage them and try to get them to do more sessions to reach higher levels of impact. But in terms of just an average student using the platform, it's only going to cost us $5 for that kid to use Upchieve, essentially an unlimited amount for a year. So very, very affordable.
So, whenever you were explaining all that, the only thing going through my mind, I'm like, Silicon Valley should have found you earlier before JPMorgan did, and you should have been the consultant to teach these startup folks and the VCs, like, wait, before you write checks, figure out how you can even scale by spending very little. I think Silicon Valley needed you badly before all these SVB and all that happened. But it's a big loss. But it's a big gain for good things in humanity. So thank you for that. Now, before all these technical stuff that's happening on the platform, so you have the web version, you have the iOS, you have the Android, so students can just log in all free, get a tutor, and get whatever help they need, right? So so what's the next? Like, how are you planning to scale? Are you what's the strategy?
So first, I'll just mention like where we're at today. So we've matched, over 100,000 on-demand requests for tutoring or college counseling from students. The majority of these requests are coming in late at night. So at times when the students would have nobody else that they could turn to for help, right? It's 10 a.m., it's midnight, it's sometimes even later. And we're the only option for students to get support with homework, with studying for the tests, with writing that essay that's due tomorrow, whatever it is. So that's kind of first thing, 100,000 match sessions, which we're really excited about. The other thing I'll call out is that we've reached over 30,000. So in terms of accounts, we have over 30,000 student accounts, over 20,000 volunteer accounts. So we're already achieving a scale for a direct service nonprofit that is really quite unheard of. Like it's really pretty, there are very few organizations that provide this like human to human interaction that are able to reach this scale. And this goes back to, again, how important scale was to us from the very beginning. We did want to build something that scales. The long-term goal for us, as I mentioned, is democratizing access to these supports. We want every single low-income high school student in the United States to know that they have access to Upchieve, that it's free, they can get as much tutoring and college counseling as they need. And so that is really what we spend all our time thinking about, is how do we reach more students? How do we get the word out and raise awareness among students and get students onto the app and using the app? So we are not doing so bad. We're off to a great start, but I think we won't be satisfied until our longer term goal is we want to be impacting 1 million students a year. And when I say impacting, I really mean not just like they made an account or they used it once, but they're using Upchieve at the level that our research, we have an actual research study that shows that when kids do 9 sessions on the platform, we have these really large gains for them in terms of their academic achievement, as well as their motivation, their confidence, and their engagement. And so that's what I mean. I want us to be literally having 1 million kids a year use Upchieve enough that they are having these really big impacts on their academic trajectory.
Oh my God. So you're also doing the tracking, the analytics of the success, and wow. So that's pretty incredible. And another thing I read, you spent some time in China and you were pretty fluent in Mandarin. Oh, wow. And I think you went to the Peking University. That's one of the best schools in China. And wow. So how long did you spend there?
I was just there half a year, but if you spend all your time studying Chinese and interacting with only people who speak Chinese for half a year, it really makes a pretty big difference. So yes, I do speak Chinese. I like to say I never feel comfortable. I don't know if I'll ever feel comfortable saying I'm fluent in another language, but I like to, what I define it as is like survivability. Like I could go to, I could be dropped into China with no phone, no dictionary, and I would survive and I'd be fine. So that's my definition of language fluency.
Oh, wow. So, this is unrelated, but I know people in China are very focused in math because a lot of our engineers in our company are from China, and they have the natural math ability, and you happen to have that natural math ability. So is that something? If you are good at math, it's easier for you to learn Mandarin, or if you already know Mandarin, you're probably going to be good at math. Is that some connection there?
I really like this theory of yours, Tom. So I can't say for sure, but I will say that I do think that I think there's some connection. I think that learning a language is a lot about learning rules and exceptions and so I think I guess lower level mathematics and learning languages I do think are really connected. I think higher level mathematics are I think the thing that most people don't necessarily realize about higher level math is it's actually very creative. It's it's like problem solving to the extreme. It's not like applying the same like algorithm or steps to solve a problem. But I actually often, like, I did feel like math and like learning languages, there was some sort of connection there, but oddly, like, I bet most people think like, oh, I'm a language person, or, oh, I'm a math person, and they don't realize that there is some overlap there. So yeah, I buy into your theory. There's something there.
Oh, wow. This is incredible. Now, so far talking to you, I'm like, wow, she's going to be unbelievable in tutoring. That's for sure. Now, can the students today, whoever is signing up, so can they select the volunteer or the teacher, and can they say like, oh, I want to be taught by Aly? Is that a thing? Is that possible?
Question. So the way it works is and actually, like, in general, we really believe in doing what students tell us to do. So in general, right, like, you've got to like build something people want, right, like the YC like motto, and I think that's totally true. So we ask students, what do you want out of a tutoring solution? Like what is the ideal tutoring like program or solution look like for you? And the number one thing students said they wanted is it was so important for them to be able to get help whenever they needed it, 24/7, right? It had to be on demand and available, because you don't know that you're going to be stuck on your homework until the moment that you start doing your homework and you have that like, oh shit moment, I don't know how to do this. And so that was the number one thing students wanted. Kids definitely, like, students appreciate being able to work with the same person, but overwhelmingly students said it was more important to get help when they needed it than get help from the same person. So we made a decision to focus on 24/7 availability. If you do that, you can't promise a student that you're going to match them with the same person every time. So they can't choose Aly. However, we're going to pair them with whoever's available. But on top of that, they can rate their coach afterwards. And so we are able to, they can rate their coach, and they can even favorite coaches that they really like working with. And then they'll be more likely to match with that person in the future.
Okay. I see that. Sometimes I wondered, my DoorDash driver, if I rate him well, are they going to send him back again? So they sometimes used to do that, but now they changed the algorithm. So you are controlling the algorithm. So that's fantastic. Now, and I also asked you about, you want to reach 1 million students, or 1 million session, or 1 million student?
1 million. Neither, actually, even bolder than that. I want to be impacting 1 million students a year. And the reason that matters is, I'll just elaborate, Tom. Like, what I think about is, in the nonprofit space as a whole, you see a lot of organizations that have been around a really long time and never managed to successfully solve the problem that they set out to solve. They never accomplished their mission. And I think that I personally feel that the reason is that a lot of them have too small of scale. If you're only ever going to impact 100 kids, or maybe the really successful nonprofits are going to impact 1,000 kids or 10,000 kids, they're really huge, then of course you can't change any number on a national scale. If there are 8 million low-income high school students in the United States, you're not going to be able to change the gap between low and high-income students if you're impacting 1,000, 10,000, even 100,000 kids. And so that's what I want to do. I want to truly close the gap between low-income and high-income students, and make sure low-income students have the same opportunity to finish high school, attend college, and achieve upward mobility. And so that's why that number is important. I just wanted to kind of give some context of how we're thinking about it. And I'll just add that I actually haven't found a nonprofit yet that I believe is truly impacting over 1 million kids a year. And when I say, again, impacting at a level that research proves is effective. So, and it's like, even I'm not gonna name any names, but in general, like, I think that, a lot of organizations, they either are great at the reach, but maybe they have trouble getting kids to like engaging with having a deep enough impact on students that's measurable, or they have really deep impact, but they're only reaching a small number of kids. And there's a lot of organizations that fall into that category, doing incredible work. I'm so glad they exist and they're helping those kids. But eventually, to create change on the national level, we have to reach more students. And we especially need to be reaching students in rural parts of the United States where no organization exists and is going to be going there, right? We have so much concentration of support in urban areas where a lot of nonprofits are started. And like, it makes sense, right? Like, there's a bigger concentration of kids you can help, but we're missing so many students across the country.
Yeah, wow, your answers are so good. Because before I met you, my idea was, you got to be like the Bill and Melinda Gates, foundation. You got to donate the $40 billion to eliminate malaria, things like that. I never imagined that you can literally start out of nowhere and build a volunteer group and reach the scale. That's where, a lot of people might start, but the scale is very limited. And, if the scale is limited, then you can't feel it. Like, how are you, your ability to scale is probably, is a research material by itself. This is crazy. Now, Aly, the other thing I'm also thinking is you're still very young. Upchieve is doing well, and it's going to continue to do well for as human beings. Hopefully, there are more volunteers. Hopefully, there's good in people. More good in people. Now, do you want to continue with Upchieve for a longer period of time in your career? Or maybe down the road, you have very good speaking ability, things like that. Down the road, you might go into politics or things like that. You're like, oh, no, Upchieve, that's going very well. I'm a politician now. I'm running for president, things like that. So is that the career path? What's the plan now?
That's such a fun question. I love it. So I actually just caught up with my old boss from JPMorgan last week, and he was like, I didn't think you'd still be working on Upchieve, to be honest, by this point. Like, I definitely thought you'd be in Congress by now. And I was like, what? So it's so funny. I don't know what kind of vibe I'm giving off here.
Yes.
I don't have any political aspirations as of now. But I think technology has a lot of potential. I could see myself, I think education is the most important problem. There's so much inequity here. There's so much that I want to have an impact on. I can tell you that I'm confident if I did solve Upchieve, right? If I solve the education problem that I'm trying to solve right now, then you would see me tackling some other problem. I think this is going to sound a little silly, but the two other problems that I really invested in, I'm like, if I could solve these problems, I would have had the perfect life. So the second one is oh my God, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you this.
No worries.
is love. I want to help people find really high quality relationships that somebody that they're going to be able to be happy with. And so I'm not satisfied with the level at which we're applying science to love. And so that's one thing. The second problem I would solve is help people find love. And then the third one is I want to be able to eat whatever I want and not get fat. If I could solve that, I would just be the happiest person ever, right? I'm
oh wow, okay,
access to education. I help people find love, and people can eat whatever they want and not get fat. That would be my biotech.
Oh my God, wow. Those are incredible. So you are always thinking how to improve the world, how to make people happy, how to get wow, so you're a positive thinker. That's for sure. And wow, this is I had a guest, Aly Murray, on my show. She had this love theory where I think people meet, instead of meeting, they talk to each other for 10 minutes, and they don't know each other at all. It's random individuals. And after that, if they want to go forward, then they can exchange information. And so it's like audio first, the love theory that she explained, and that video did pretty well. So I was like, wow. And I'm sure you have this volunteer idea, and I have, that's an area I think the world needs you for that as well. It's very important, because if you think of this Tinder, all owned by the corporations, right? There's a Match.com owns some of those apps, and all these. So these corporate profit line. Whereas if you bring in your volunteer base, you can disrupt so many industries. I think it's not just the love and the health stuff. What you're basically saying is the ability of good and human to disrupt the problems we have and to make changes is just phenomenal. And I think, wow, this is I'm just so honored that I got to know you. This is this is so interesting. And but one thing is, all the problems you're solving, are these very location based, or you're available throughout the country?
I'd love to make this clear. We are available in all 50 states. There's no regional focus for Upchieve. So if you're listening to the podcast, right? So the show, essentially, we are like any student, any low-income student anywhere in the United States, and any low-income high school student could be using Upchieve today. And we actually really need help from everybody to make sure that like more students know that this is available to them. So there's no regional focus.
Okay. So it's fully available, and then you have two other things coming up. So wow, Aly, this is so I need to know one advice from you. This is for our audience, for myself, for everybody. This, because you were probably our first guest that's inspiring us into the journey in the nonprofit, the good in people, volunteering, things like that. Because so far, I think we have been inspiring people to chase money and startup, venture capital, those kind of stuff. This is totally different. This is a different way of thinking, different lifestyle, different way of giving the message out. What is your recommendation for a high school student, college student, or a guy in JPMorgan floor that's going to drop out? Or what's your recommendation for them if they have thought about this nonprofit idea or have thought about doing something good, but they're like, I cannot reach scale, or it's never going to be that impactful? What is your advice for them?
I love this question. So I'm going to take this opportunity to also mention that even if you're not ready to quit your job, that is quite the leap. I think you can be doing a lot of good already. So we are always looking for more volunteers. So I definitely want to make that really clear. If there's like any one subject that you're like, oh yeah, I like this subject, I'm pretty good at that, like we'll certify you. There's a little quiz that you'll pass, right? And so you can come sign up for Upchieve, we'll train you, we'll certify you, and you can actually start working with students. And it's so flexible and convenient. If you just want to do one tutoring session a month, that's totally fine. If you want to start, like you do the first session, you love it, and you're like, oh, I want to help more kids, like you can just go on the app anytime you're free and check if there's a student waiting for help. So it's the first thing. You don't actually have to quit your job if you want to start doing some good. Come and volunteer with Upchieve. The second thing is there's nothing wrong with making lots of money as long as you do something good with that money, right? And so some of our best our largest individual donors today are former founders. Like we have some very impressive I'm not gonna I won't name the people, but there's some very impressive former founders of large companies that you will have heard of that are donors to Upchieve, right? And like that is what they're doing with all that money that they've made. And so definitely encourage that. Of course, we accept donations. And now finally, I'll answer your question. If you have an idea that you are like so passionate about, you're like, this is a problem. It's a problem that impacted me, especially. I really feel that as much as possible, that like the more you relate to the problem that you're trying to solve, the more successful you will be. If you have a problem you're really passionate about, I think that if you believe that you're the only one that will do it, then you should go for it. And I think that was for me what like pushed me to do this, is I really felt like, okay, I may be the only person crazy enough to try to do this. And so I have to go and try to do this. So, I definitely think it's worth the push. It's worth trying. I think that, if you don't have a safety net like I did, I really do think it's great to like work for a few years, like do it as the side gig. It's going to be really, really hard. But I do think like the more traction you can get before you take that leap, I think that it'll make your life a lot easier. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful advice. That's, oh my God. Thank you, Aly. Thank you for coming on the show. You just totally made our day. Anybody listening, I think they would love it. And they, I would highly recommend you folks, if you have lots of money, please donate to upchieve.org. If you want to volunteer your hours, if you want to contribute to society, and these are kids from low-income high schools, this is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful platform to get involved in, get to know these firsthand. And if the students from all these YouTube young generation, you guys are watching, you need help with your homeworks, just go to upchieve.org. Within 5 minutes, you get a tutor. You get your problem solved, you get a good grade, and then wow, this is a perfect combination of things. And Aly, we want you to be super successful in this. We really hope that you change the world, make it better. And we also hope whenever you visit San Francisco, you drop by the studio, and but we'd love to know what's next, what's happening, but your other ventures that you mentioned, you're so kind enough to mention those, and I'm sure you're going to disrupt those industries as well. And let us know more. So thank you, Aly, and folks, please do subscribe.